Okay, you lovely people. Here we go again. This is another one of those Book Nook type things, and this one is the Aden pirate ship. Let's have a look at the box now. I've not been in this box yet, so we'll look at it together. And hopefully there's a bit of a dent there, so we don't want any damaged interior stuff, do we? So that's those two tabs. So, first off, got a bag with a dowel in it and some plastic parts. Nothing else in there. Alright, so dear customer, due to logistics limitations, batteries and glue are not included. Okay, understandable, not a problem. So we've got some chains and a light by the look of it. Okay, electronics. Yeah, nice. So a sanding stick, some screws and some sticky pads. Look at that, lovely little screwdriver. Okay, so moving those to one side, you've got the boards. Oh, hang on. Some stickers, yeah. And instructions. All very nautical themed. Nice, looks good. And we've got all the boards in there. So, without further ado, let's just crack on with the build. Right, straight into it, no hanging about. So we've got these parts here, and in the instructions, get one of these, pop it in, and then the other one, pop it in, and then the third one. Guess what? Pop it in the hole. So that's those three. A little bit wonky, but that's what you get there. And then that fits into there. So if we place that way round, pop those into there that way round, got a better chance of getting them in without breaking them, because they are a little bit fragile. So yeah, that's first stage done, as it proceeds to drop it. Then we need this part here, these two parts, and that central part. All got to fit together, but it says you need to cut these at an angle, so they're sort of mitered. It's marking the wood. Let's stink. Is it worth just sanding these down, I think? So yeah, it's sort of beveled edge to it, and that's 120 grit. So we're going to need some glue here. To fit that onto there. We're going to have to paint it, I think. So we get that one glued in place. And then these two. Right, which glue? Let's try a bit of super glue. Have I got any left? Run out. Okay, no problem. press that fit in. We'll get this one put in. Probably have to paint that. Look at that, beautiful. Right, so we've got that stage, and then we've got these two parts here. They're marked up. So I think that goes like that. And then the other side. Like that. So we'll get those glued in. That's where these blocks come into play. So 1, 2, 3 blocks. I've got a link in my description and you can get them from there. That's about the cheapest price you're going to get them on Amazon, if you still use Amazon. There literally is hardly anything touching there, but we'll crack on with some the other side. It's a bit better on this side. It says. Right, we'll be right back for the next stage. Okay, the next stage, need to glue this part onto there. I've just done a quick test fit and I think this will hold together nicely. So we'll pop a little bit of glue on there. I don't think you could do this very easily with wood glue. Just won't set in. It'd take too long to set. And I think having the metal blocks really helps as well. So we'll just let that cure for a second and then we'll come in and we'll glue the sides. Actually, we can do that now. Now we've got it in position, we'll backfill it with glue. Adding a little bit of pressure to hold it in place while it sets. Like all of these builds, it's not a race to the finish. It's a case of just getting it right. Follow the instructions and just enjoy the journey. And then once completed, it will look just like that. Then we need we need to make some more of these guardrails. So similar process to the one that we've already done, but these are triple layered. So I'll make these, but I'll speed it up. otherwise it'll get boring for you. So yeah, that's those two done. So those get glued up like that, I believe, and we'll be on to the next stage. Okay, so those three are all glued together, and we just continue the process. And these are the rest of the parts just over here. So I'll just show you what I'm doing. It's just a little splodge of super glue. And you line it up. There's just a line that runs across there. That's that one. Then on to the next. And I'll speed this one up again. Otherwise it gets boring. Just need to make sure they're all in the order of what the instructions say. You shouldn't have a problem. I think if you use wood glue, you'd have a bit more movement with it, so you can adjust things, but if you can get it down to the right position the first time, you don't have to wait anything or any time, and then you can crack on with the next one. I think that one's a little bit out, saying that. Just on the edge, because these edges are almost all the same, whereas these are stepped. And this is the final piece on the top, and then we have to make the railings. And that's that stage completed, and that is, my friends, the front of a boat or a ship. So yeah, we'll crack on with the next stage, which is these little railings that pop into here. Okay, so these posts, fairly simple. You've got two components. You've got that little post part, and then these little pegs that go in the back, and they're like a T-shaped. They give you some spares just in case you break them, because they are a little bit fiddly and a bit delicate. Yeah. So yeah, they're really small. So yeah, we'll just get these done. Boom. we got there, we got there, we got there. And then you just put them in to the receptacle holes. Yeah, you don't need glue for this part, but you do want the brown part facing out to the front of the bow. So the way you manufacture these dictates that. And then once we've done that, we're going to add some chain. So yeah, the front of the boat will look just like that, and those will look like that from the rear. Very nice they are too. Okay, so the next bit is we've got this very fine chain, and we have to glue it onto these parts here. So I'll just get that done, and I'm going to use Mr. Super Glue, and these little tips are invaluable in this kind of precision gluing scenario. So we'll have to put the first bit on, and then we will wait until it cures, and then we can move on to the next bit. So after gluing the first one on, glue all the other ones on, add a little bit of droop onto the chain for each one, and then just let that cure, and then we'll snip that off at the end. Okay, so we've got these parts laid out for this next section. After we've finished the guardrail, the first thing we need to do is we need to glue this part on there. And then once all this is completed, this is the crow's nest. So once that's completed, so we'll try and line up the wood panels as best we can, so they're flowing in the same direction. Then you get these, you've got that sort of curved part that faces outwards. So there's 4 of these, need to go in the holes. I have to say the parts are really nice and easy to get out of the sprues. They just pop out, you don't really have to sand any of them. You can if you wish, but I haven't. So that's that one. Then we need to get this central onto there. So again, get some glue onto that part there, and you might need to excuse my head. So just push that down for a second or two, and while that's working its way, we shall pop these two together like scissor sisters, just like that, and then we'll just pop into that little hole. Pop some a little bit of glue on this, and you want to make sure that it goes up to a point so it's thicker at the bottom, and that looks like that. Now the next stage says to pop this on, and these pegs go in on top. Now I don't want to do it that way just because I think it'd be harder, so we'll get these pegs popped in. It's probably easier to put them in this way first, and we'll add a little bit of glue to each one, just a little spot. I tend to hold my breath when I'm doing this kind of work. I don't know about anybody else. There we go. Oh, I've done that the wrong way round. It's a shame. So yeah, that looks like that. And then add a little bit of glue onto here. So yeah, once completed, will look like that. Now I'm going to add a little bit of brown stain to the top because I got it the wrong orientation, just to give it some extra texture. So it doesn't stick out so much. Let that dry. Beautiful, job done. On to the next. Okay, so we've got lots of wooden weapon racks, and they both assemble in exactly the same way. So get the first one banged out. So I think the easiest way, put that in there like that. That's the first stage, nice and easy. So yeah, those two assemble like that. And then this top frame has to sit just in between those two bits like that. So we'll get that glued in. So yeah, shouldn't take that long, but once you've done that, it's in that position. Then you glue in these parts. So we'll get those glued in. Then the next item is this one. Okay. Then there's a shorter one of these two, which is the next one, like so. And then the last one sticks out a bit. And these are all got printed faces, so you've got to be aware of that. That'll do. So that will look like that. Looks nice. And then this part just gets glued on the front. But we'll let that cure first. And we'll crack on with the next one. There we go. That's those two completed. On to the next stage. Boom. Okay, on to the next stage. So we're making an easel, signpost, and a fish on a stand. Okay, on to the easel. So you just glue this part on, and that holds the picture in place. And then once you've done that, you do the support bracket at the back. That's got a notch in it. And then it's just a case of getting the picture frame in. Then onto the signpost. These just two parts just click into the square holes. Nice and easy. So that's the first one in. And you can hear them when they go into position. They make a sort of clicking noise. Then it's a case of just gluing these in the opposite direction. So that's the first one seated on, or seated on. And then onto the second one. And that just pops in between those two. And the secret is not to fuss about these things, just get them put in and then leave them. And the third part is this swordfish that sits on a little stand. And again, that just clips into place. There's no need for glue on that. And that's the final result. Look at those beauties. 3 of them. And then the next stage, we're going to start building a box. Okay, now we get onto the box section. So we are building 7 different boxes. These ones we're building right now are the open top boxes. And you've just got to make sure the orientation of the slats on the ends all match up. And yeah, it's fairly easy to do. They just snap into place. And then once completed, there's those 3. Then we move on to the other boxes, which are square basically, and these will get finally wrapped, and there is 4 of these to build, and just follow the instructions, snap into place, nice and easy. So this is the first one. We're doing the wrap, and it does say to glue these, but I think the stickers should hold. So those 4 and the other 3, so that's 7 in total of the boxes we've built. Okay, so the next the next thing we're going to build is this cannon, which is a little bit tricky. So you've got the different sized wheels and the different spokes. So the small wheels go on first to the front, So this is just building the first one, and you've got to be careful that the spoke doesn't go all the way through onto the other side. There's me just adjusting it there. Then onto the bigger spoke, and then we start building the main cannon holder. Again, this is just 3 parts, and then they just snap in together like so. These wheels are then secured in underneath in the gaps, and I'd advise you to glue those in as I'm doing so with the super glue right there. And that looks like that from underneath. Now this is a sticker, and it says to roll the sticker up. You can't do that very easily, so I just decided to leave it on its backing and just roll it around a tool that I had to give it the cylindrical shape. Yeah, this is where I messed up. So you use the wooden dowel that I'll show you in this picture, and use that to roll the sticker around to make the cannon. And you just glue in the 2 ends, and it should look something like that, and then that just sits into the cannon. So that's the easiest way to do it. Okay, moving on, we're on to the silver coin pile. So it's just 3 put next to each other, then you apply 2 on top, which is a little bit fiddlier. So that, yeah, I thought, nah, tweezers aren't wide enough, so I'll just use my fingers in the end. And then just place those on. Now I'm using super glue all the way through on this build so far, and it just speeds up the process. Otherwise you have to make components and then sit around, wait for them to dry before you commence on the next project. Okay, so this is the cat set of steps, and these just snap into place, and the wood is cut in a certain way that gives it some flexibility, so you can bend it round the corner and you snap it into the other position. There's 3 steps. The second step I did where it just broke on me, basically. The hinge, well, the flexible part of the wood broke, so I had to super glue that into position, but it's not a problem. And then you just stack these 3 together, glue them on top of each other, making sure that the left hand side is all uniform and straight. And then you just slot the cat in carefully. I just rock it backwards and forwards, and then it pops. Then you've got the cat stairs, nice and easy. So yeah, we're now moving on to the rack with all the items in, and it's easier to do them, put all the items into the shelves, and then you start building it up from the sides. Now, this is really a nice looking piece actually. So this is just the next shelf going in, and it's a case of pushing the 1 peg into that vertical slat, and then you've got the ones underneath. Then you get the end piece on, making sure it's the one with the correct amount of holes. Then onto the next piece. It's not that clear in the instructions, the orientation of these shelves, as in the cutouts, but you'll work it out. So yeah, just starting to add the books in there. There is a single bookend that you glue in a bit, but we'll do that later. And that's the next support going in. You have to push these really tight, so otherwise it's just all going to be slightly out of shape. And then the next component we're sticking in. I don't even know what that's supposed to be. Yeah, I got it in the wrong hole initially. There's a thinner piece that goes in next, which is this one. And that just get popped in the hole. So the next part is just adding the end piece before we add the top. And that again just snaps into place. Very nice too. Then it's a case of sticking the top on like that, and then just gluing this. Well, yeah, I glued the book in there, I didn't show you that. And now we're adding the little supports for the wine bottle, or the ship in the bottle, and the ship. And these are a little bit fiddly to get in, but not too bad. And again, just push fit. There you go, that just slots in there. It's difficult because this unit's got two little feet on it, or pegs at the bottom, so you don't want to damage those. And then it's just a case of fitting in those vases and the ship on the end. That ship I did straighten up. Then you just glue the front fascia on, which is very nice too, and that's so intricate, the cutouts on this thing. And yeah, so just to keep that glued, I've put these 1, 2, 3 blocks on top. Boom. Okay, now onto the dartboard. This is really small and it's difficult to see it, but basically the darts just peg in to the holes. There's 3 of them. Fairly easy to do, and there's the result. Now we're on to building the chest. This will get covered in a sticker. So again, just like all the boxes we've produced so far, it's just a case of snapping it in and making sure it's the right orientation. So just in that bottom left corner is a hole in the top of the box. That corresponds to the sticker on top, and I just had to glue some of the edges on this just to keep it into position. Then you just pop that hole with tweezers, scissors, whatever you got at hand, and that's what that case looks like. Now we're just building 3 books, and that's just 3 stickers that just fits around the outside, very similar to the Beyond Library Books building session that I did. These 3 get stacked with the end pieces sticking out, and again just using a spot of super glue in between. Really need to cut the end off that super glue. Starting to build up. There you go, that's those 3. Then we build the book. Again, this is a sticker, and I preferred just to cut it out, still stuck to the backing, and then fold it up in concertina style. Not as easy as it should be, but yeah, easier than trying to work with a sticker. And yeah, I tried to mark out the places where the folds were, or score the fold lines. And then once you've got that stage done, it should look something along like that. And I had to glue that so it held its position. and then that just sits on top of the books that we've already pre-made, and fan it out as well. That looks like that. That then you glue this, well, this pops into the hole that we've made, and you glue that stack of books at the back at an angle. And now we work on a frame, and it's just putting another frame on top of a frame. So that's fairly easy. Again, using super glue, but you've just got to be so precise as to the placement. You've got no movement. Once it's on, it's on. Now we're working on the fireplace, and there's lines around the bottom piece of wood, so you can line up the top, and it just gets put in there like that. Then we add this little crescent part that just gets glued on. There's a printed piece already underneath, exactly the same. Then we build it up like a bookcase or a box, adding the sides in. Nice and easy. And again, it's not that clear as to the orientation of the top shelf that goes above this, but I'm sure you'll be able to work that one out. Even if you don't get it right first time, you can pull that bit apart and retry it. And that looks just like that. Very nice too. Right, close up. Now we're adding some parts. So this is like an inkwell and a feather pen. And that just pops into that hole. And that's a light, like a gas light. Well, no, an egg timer, is it? Oh, yes, an egg timer. Then we add the book. This gets glued in, as well as that telescope, and there's a hook, pirate's hook, that gets glued in. And then the last one, the last piece of the puzzle, I don't even know what that is, but that just fits in the slot. And there you go. On to the next section, again building up another box. And then once completed, should look just like that. Quite a nice looking box. Then the gramophone just gets on top. Just be careful when you slot that into place. I use tweezers. Oh no, a pressing tool, sorry, not tweezers. Just to get that in place so it doesn't snap. As you can see, it's very thin, the bit there. Now onto this table. Again, the instructions aren't that clear as to which orientation of the leg, so which is the top and which is the bottom. And I did make a mistake on this, but I'm not bothered really, because it will get sorted when we put it into the main part. It's only when you pop these ends in you realise, oh, there's not enough room and it's distorting the legs. But I did try to take one out to fix my problem, but it just snapped, so I left them in as is. As you can see, it's a little bit wonky. Now on to the map. That's just a sticker. Again, that needed gluing down at the front. And this goes in at a nice angle. Look at that. It's quite delicate, this table, so you can see that I'm treating it with the utmost respect. Then we plug this part in. Don't even know what that is. It's like a teapot or something. Then the gramophone. This should come in a little bit more towards the centre. Did make a mistake. Then these two round things. the magnifying glass, and just like a hammer type thing. Just all gets glued into place, and look at that, beautiful, beautiful. Pleased with that. Then on to the chair, very nice, ornate chair, look at that. 3 parts, quite easy to do, just the pegs line up with the main seat, and again this is just press fit together. That looks like that when finished. Now onto the beast head. These are just stuck down. Made a slight mistake with that, they're not quite straight together, but then you glue on the horns. Again, a little bit fiddly, but the super glue really helps. And that's what that looks like when finished. We're flying through this. Now to the steering rudder. And this is just another piece glued on top to give it a more of a 3-dimensional look. And that looks like that when finished. Beautiful. And this is all the parts we've built so far. So we've got the bow, we've got the crow's nest, the armories, 2 of those, the picture frame, the signpost, the swordfish. I think it's a swordfish. Then we've got the 7 boxes, the cannon, the coin pile, the cat, stairs, the cabinet of curiosities, the book stack on the case. Then we've got that map frame. Then we've got the fireplace. Very nice. Dartboard, the table, and the chair. Beast head, and then the steering wheel. Okay, so yeah, you get this board and the battery box. You basically feed all the cables through. You screw that in from this side with the screws provided. So we'll get that done. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying this build. It's interesting. Hopefully the end result is worth it for you guys and myself. So yeah, just a case of getting those into place. That's the first one. We'll do the opposite corner. Now these are nice, easy to fit, let's say. The holes are already pre-marked out and cut out, so you don't have to pre-drill them before screwing it in, which is very nice. A nice little touch. You see different things that are better on some builds than others, and some little things like having these little screw holes ready in place, so you don't have to, like I say, pre-drill it. Makes life a lot easier. All the things you pop out on the off the sprue or the boards, again, very easy to do. You don't have to use a scalpel or anything to cut them out, or pre-cut them before you pop them out. Very, very few parts I've had to sand. Again, a nice touch. So that's real precision laser cut, I'm assuming. So yeah, that's the first part done. Then we need to build this up. It says to add the side panel, but we'll do this in this way first. So that goes facing outwards, and these are D13, D3 and D10. So yeah, again, and all this is going to do is hold this board in place. Nothing to do with this board, it goes right at the back for the next layer. So this board has got the 4 tabs, and this thing is supposed to be a light sensor or motion sensor. So this just slots into place. Right, was a little bit nerve-wracking because you don't want to snap that board. Oh god, that'd be a great start to the build, wouldn't it? So yeah, that looks like that. We'll just double check the lights all work. Oh, look at that, beautiful. So we'll move that screwdriver out of the way. And this just clips in like that. So yep, we're on to a winner. Winner, winner, winner. So this part needs to come into play, and you have a big hole there compared to all the other ones, and you need to get your lights and get the shortest one, and then these two lights pretty much the same length, so one of those second shortest lights we go with, I don't know, both the same length. We'll go with that one, shall we, for a laugh. So yeah, let's try that. Yes, there we go. That's, yeah, these are a little bit wider than the hole, so just sort of force it through. And then it's all cables, mate, it's all cables. This then slots into those side parts there, whilst also fitting onto there. So that's that stage done. Boom. So the next stage, if you've got the musical box, this will affect you, but we haven't. So you bring this into play and you'd install the music box there, but we haven't got that, so we don't have to do that. Obviously be careful not to get any of your wires trapped. So yeah, that's looking like that. All those through here. And then these can just hang over the corner just like that. And on to the next stage. Okay, so we got to get this stuck down onto here, and carefully, without getting any glue anywhere, you have to put this so it lines up with the outer edge and that bottom edge. So yeah, give that a second to cure. We use these 1, 2, 3 blocks. The next things we need to install is this and the dartboard. Now there you go. Don't know if you can see it, but there's, I can't see it now. There's a circle there, and the dartboard faces out, so that just goes on there. So the dartboard will go there, and this, I believe, goes there. There's just a little line in there, so we'll get those glued in. Okay, so the next stage is we're going to be putting in the storage rack. Now this was a little bit of a fiddle, but you'll get there in the end. And you've got 2 tabs on the bottom that fit into the base plate, plus the 2 holes to receive it. Then onto the fireplace. So once you've got the fireplace installed, you need to sort the lighting out. So the number 1 light is close to the floor, which you can see on the left there, and the number 2 light needs to be draped over the top of the fireplace, and I will just put that into position with a bit of the clear tape, which isn't the best quality, but it's just a temporary measure just to hold it in place, as you can see there. So now we install the weapons rack number 2, and that just sits to the side of the fireplace, which covers up some of the cabinet that we've already done. And also we're going to be installing the leather case with the books on top, so we'll just get those glued in. Then on to the cat staircase. So this is where I made my first big mistake. I left this door out and didn't find it till the end, but that goes behind the cat on the back wall. Now we're sticking down the newspapers and the little wine bottles, and they just get glued to the floor. And I'm just using wood glue for these, and there is 2 of them. And the little dropper bottle is ideal for this process because you can get nice precise gluing. So we're just adding the papers in, and there is 4 of them. Look at those, magically appearing. And then on to the 3rd bottle. This guy must be a drunkard on this ship. I like his style. Okay, another couple of bottles need to be added to the floor. So this guy loves his booze. Look at them. You don't really see these in the final build because it's just quite cluttered. But there is plenty to look at. I'm not complaining. Now we need to put on the wrench on top of the barrel, and that just gets glued down, and this goes right next to the fireplace in position like that. So now it's a case of putting some more components in the floor. This is H66 and C12, which is little skull. Then onto this little treasure chest, it's made out of plastic, and then onto the rudder that just fits in there. So the next part I didn't film, but I've added in the table. Because I put the legs in wrong way round, I didn't film it, but it was a bit of a struggle. And then you just add in the chair. So that was my second mistake with the table. As you can see, that door behind the cat is still not there, it never appears. So we're going to add the last of the plastic pieces, which is the golden cage, and that just goes at the foot of the table just there. Then we glue in the fish and the crossbow onto the back wall, and there is little markings on the wall, you can barely see, but they're there just to keep it in the right position. Okay, so the fishing rod goes in next, and then after you've glued that in, it wants you to put the bow of the boat in. I didn't do that at this stage, I thought I'd leave it out till later. Then we're adding these wall components on. That one's very delicate, that part I've just put in, and this one sort of fits in into the holes, and that looks just like that once completed. Then we go on to the old moose head that just fits on the wall there. That looks very nice as well. Look at all that in the positions. Oh. Then we go on to the flooring. Now you would have had the bow of the boat getting in your way here, so it's easier to do it this way. So you're adding in all the sea elements. And do whichever angle suits you to get these into position. So this is the right hand side that we've nearly finished with the little fish at the front, and that looks just like that. Very nice indeed. And then we'll move over to the other side with the sea elements, the seaweed and the waves. And we just get those popped into the holes, no glue needed. And that's the last one. Very nice too. Look at that. Now we can add the bow of the boat into position, and it's marked on the floor. So yeah, just get that into position and you're good to go. That just looks very nice, like that. All those components. It's very busy inside, but it looks nice. So now we add the broomstick that goes behind the cat, and it's just a case of gluing that into position. And I've added a little bit of super glue just on the tip of the top with the precise dispenser. And this is all the base floor completed. Very nice too. Look at all that detail. Right, on to the next stage, which is the old next floor, and it's a case of inserting this chandelier, and you've got to get it the light glued in behind it or taped in behind it, whichever way you want. Again, this was a little bit fiddly to do because you want to get that right in the middle of that lamp fitting, and I super glued that into position. Then you put the flooring in, and then you put the anchor at the front of the boat. Right, so this was easier to glue these parts onto this plate before you put it into the floor. So you've got a door, you've got a window frame, and then you've got the cutlasses and guns that go onto that place, and you can see there's little markings for where you install those. Again, I'm still using super glue for most of this. And yeah, these are very small and delicate. So I'm just taking the time to get them in the right position, so they look nice. There you go. And once completed, will look like that. And then again, that just gets installed. There's just two little tabs on the bottom that fit into the next floor. Very nice. Then you need to get the lights. The longer of the lights needs to go. There's a little gap at the one side. That just needs to slide into there. And then the next smaller of the lights just goes across the middle, and that will be the light fitting for the roof that goes in the next floor. So we now need to put in the sandbags or the sacks. There's 3 of these that need to get onto the floor, and there's 3 little holes. One's behind the other one. I would advise you to put the one behind in first before you put the one in front, as it's a little bit of a struggle. Then onto the cannon, and it wasn't to the end of the build that I realised that you were supposed to use the wooden dowel with the sticker on for the main cannon part. And we've put the coins in there. Now we're just adding elements. This is like a rope wrapped piece of wood. Then some stickers just get placed on the floor, and this next part is adding in the first bomb, and that just gets glued to the floor right next to the cannon. And then once completed, that will look like that. Very nice indeed. This next part, I don't even know what it is, but it's F68, and that just gets plugged into the floor. I think it's like a load of gold, or a pile of gold with some sacks. And that's where we're up to with that. Again, looking very nice and detailed. Then we're adding some components onto the wall, which is a life ring and an octopus. And there's markings on the wall for those. Let's just add in the octopus in. Sorry about the angle, it's not the best. You'll see it in a second. There you go, that's what that looks like. Again, still using super glue for all these components. So yeah, just constantly building up the interest level on this floor. So the next component we put in is this standard with a flag at the top, and that just plugs into the floor. Again, just be careful you don't snap it. A bit of a wiggle, in that goes, and you're not going to believe this, what the next part is. Yeah, it's an elephant. And then a light will go behind an elephant with like a scarf over its head. How crazy is that? And the light, like I said, will go behind this. This is like a barrel with a parrot on top. There you go, look at that. Very nice. Then we're adding the scarecrow. He just plugs into the floor. A little bit of a wiggle, big bit of support underneath. And then a case of gluing this grate in that covers that big hole on the floor just there. Very nice too. And now we're just adding this chain linked fence, which is a very delicate part, but it came off the sprue nice and easily. I would advise you to glue one end of this in, because it will move later on. It won't just stay in the pegs. And that's the next floor done. Look at that. Very nice too. I've installed the light behind the elephant with the same sort of super glue technique. Now it's a case of feeding that one cable through with the light in, which is the last light. We've got another light that fits on top of, I love another bulb that fits on the bottom of this flooring, and again that's like a chandelier, and that was super glued and put into place. And I'm just putting some of this rubbish tape on to try and secure it in some position. There you go, look at that, the precision. It's amazing. So we flip this top floor over, and that just fits into the tabs at the back. And on the floor beneath there's a little tab sticking up. Again, a little bit of faffing around, but you'll get there. So at every stage I like to test the lights to make sure they're still working, and everything seems to be working very nice too. So we continue with the floor beneath, and a few more components are added, and this first ladder goes in with some glue. So now we're installing the tall ladder, and that goes between the bottom floor and the first floor, and that just fits on a little bit of the front of the boat, or one of the steps, because you need this to go slightly above the floor level, so it sticks up just like that. So we're flying along, and we're starting on the wooden boxes, just the ones we've covered, and we do a stack of 3 and then 1 on top, so they just get glued into place. That's the second one, and you just need to do the angles that suit, really. So onto the 4th box that just sits on top like that, and there is a little red part that just gets glued onto one of the boxes. I chose the top box because I want to be slightly different. So once completed, it will look like that. Beautiful. Can't beat it for the quality. And another quick test with the lighting to make sure it's all working. And you can see it's very busy. But it looks nice. I'm happy with it. So we've just got to start working on the top floor. We're coming towards the end now. Well, the last few stages. Still a lot to do, but we're getting there. Beautiful. Looks like a proper pirate ship. Now on to the last light that fits onto the crow's nest. And I found the easiest way again was just to glue this in position with a bit of super glue and some activator. So just a little dob just to hold it into position, and then I added more glue afterwards. You only need a spot. There you go. Activator activated. And then you can add more glue. So now we're adding the blue fluffy clouds to the back wall. Again, just glue those in place. There's 2 of them. Boom. Look at that. How scenic. How lovely. How piratey. That's even a word. Now we're going to install the guardrails. And for some reason these didn't fit quite properly. Well, they fitted on the floor and they fitted next to each other, but they overhung just a fraction on the left hand side. So that one went in fine, and then the next one just gets glued in. Now we're gluing in the crow's nest, and there is a circle you can just about see on the floor as an indicator. You want to try and get this straight at all the angles as well. Mine is just slightly off kilter. So we're just adding the anchor to the back. That's just glued in. And we're just adding the barrel in, and that just gets pegged in right next to the ankle. So just off screen at the bottom, we're just putting in the pirate flag. Very nice too. That just gets glued on. So now we're adding a part called E67. I haven't got a clue what it is. And that just goes into the floor peg just like that. And behind that is another weapons rack that we've installed as well. Now we're adding the road sign, which is a perfect place is on the top of a boat. Where would you put it? It's ridiculous. So yeah, that's installed. Now onto more craziness. A crab with a hat on and a hook. How ridiculous. Looks like something off the cover of a Prodigy album. Oh god, it just gets worse. So now we're just installing another component, which is the first of the 3 bombs, and these just get glued into place. So with those in place, it's time to move on to the wooden crates, and there's 3 of these. So you just arrange them on the floor as best as you can, and the third one just fits on top of the two beneath. So once you've got through that stage, it looks just like that. Beautiful. That ridiculous crab with a hat on. It's coming along though. So now we're just installing two of the wine bottles. One just sits inside the crate. This was a little bit fiddly to do, to be honest with you. And yeah, a bit of activator just to hold it into place. Again, you can barely see it. And the other bottle just gets glued just in front of the crates, just like that. There's a lot of bottles on the floor of this pirate ship. I suppose it's to be expected. There you go, just placed it in there. So the next bit that we glue in is the old easel, and that just gets placed in front of the three crates that we've just installed with the two bottles. And the next component is another steering wheel, ship steering wheel, and that just fits at the front just there. And then there's a railing that just fits into those two holes. Now this part I found was very loose fitting, so I'm just adding a touch of glue into the holes there to keep it stable. Okay, so while that is all glue is setting on that side, we work on the side panel, and the first one we put on with some glue is a life ring. It just fits over that hole there, or that window. Next up is this sign that just fits over there, and it says "Search for treasure with me." Onto the cuckoo clock, it just fits next to that. Boom. Okay, onto the first of the two lamps that fit into the wall, and that just gets pegged in. Just like that. This part is very, very delicate, and that just plugs in there. It's like a side sconce, and that also helps the floor above stay in position. Now onto this fish that we made earlier, and that just plugs in to that hole there. Look at that. And onto a world map in a frame, and that just gets glued onto there. Next up, picture frame over the picture. Now I nearly missed this off the sprue because you don't really notice it's on there, but that just gets glued into place. Next up, another light fitting, and I just knocked that sconce beneath. I told you it was delicate, so I needed to glue that back into place. Not even sure what this next part is, but it's D9, and that just fits in there. Beautiful. And we fit another pirate flag just there. Again, there's a little mark for it as to where it gets positioned. And that, my friends, is that side completed. So now on to the most fiddly part of the build, is you've got to get the chain just placed in the little hole on the crow's nest, and you glue that in position. Then you rock it to one side and put the other end of the chain through the side wall, and then glue that into position, and then you snip that chain off, and then you move on to the next hole. on the crow's nest. Took a while and quite enjoyed this process, to be honest with you, because I feel like I've achieved something. So yeah, just use your patience and you'll get there. And then once completed, it will look just like that. Beautiful. Precision work at its best. Then we're adding the side that we've just added all the parts to, and that just gets fitted. And it was at this stage that I realised that those benches on the top shelf, one was sticking out too far. So my solution was to take this off and sand it right back, that bench, and then that fitted like a piece of cake. So that's where we're at, looking very nice too. So we've got the chains on the one side, and now we have to repeat the process and add the chains to the other side of the build. So this is me adding the chain to the front, the crow's nest, and then once it's positioned, just a bit of super glue and then flash it off with the spray. Boom. I'd say it's quite therapeutic, but also quite tricky. And that's getting the chain out the side. I'm using my special glasses on here because it's all a bit fiddly. So when you've got the chain in the correct position, case of just cutting it off, working on the next section. It's all coming together. Look at that. That's all the chains done. How nice. Took a little while, but yeah, well worth it. It looks really nice. Okay, when you've got all the sides fitted in together, it's time for putting on the lid. This is ornate as you get, and it's just a case of fitting it into the little slots, and this ties everything in together and keeps it nice and tight. Now I hate to ask, but is there any chance you could just smash that like button? It really helps with the old YouTube channel. Thank you. So the front panel is glued on, which is quite surprising. Yeah, just a case of making sure all the sides fit, everything runs smooth, nothing sticking out. And once you've got that done, all we have to do is add another steering wheel, and that goes over the top of the sensor. That's just a case of gluing that in position. So once you've glued that into position, that is the final part of this build. Now there are accessories where you've got a dust cover that just slides in the back of that, but we haven't got that one on this, and we haven't got the musical box. So here we go, this is the full reveal. So the edge of this front plate was getting on my nerves a little bit, so I painted it blue as it was just a brown colour. Hope you enjoyed that one. Don't forget to rate, comment and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.